know that some of you guys have been asking for like tutorials on how to use some certain tools or just basic tools that you should have if you want to start out DIYing. So I am going to show you the tools that I'm using for this project and kind of give you a rundown real quick on how they all work. Okay, so the very first saw I owned and wanted and used was a miter saw. So this one is called a sliding compound miter saw, and the reason for that is because it will slide back and forth so that you can make wider cuts on it, which I totally recommend doing. Even if you have a different kind of saw, I always recommend getting a compound sliding miter saw if you're going to buy one. The basics of this saw are, this will come down. If you want to close it, you just push it down, and there's this little button here, whoops, that you can push and it will lock it, and that's how you can store it. And then you push down, pull it out to unlock it. This is actually my brother's saw, so I gotta familiarize. Okay, so if you need to move your blade this way or this way, right here is a lever that you can unlock this bevel. And then right here is the angle that you're going to go off of. So I'm putting it back at 0, and then I'm gonna lock this by turning that lever, and now it won't move. Okay, so I don't use this bevel as often as I will use this part to find my angles. So right now I'm at 0, which means anything I cut is going to come along this fence, and it will cut it at a perfect 90-degree angle. Say I want to cut something at a 45-degree angle. There's my 45. I'm going to come here and unlock this lever and push on this, and that will allow me to slide this over until I hit my 45. And then my saw blade will cut whatever I have at a 45. So once I've got this where I need it, I just push this down to lock it, and now it won't be able to slide. Now that I'm ready to make my cut, I'm going to line up my piece of wood along my fence and pull it down to where I need it. I'm going to make my mark and measurement, and then before I actually work the saw, I'm going to make sure that my mark lines up with my saw blade. And then in order to start the saw, there's a little trigger up here that will start my saw. So one thing that's important to know for beginning DIYers, this saw blade is an eighth of an inch. It's an eighth of an inch thick. Some saw blades are only a 16th. So if I make a line right here, I am going to have to decide which side of the line I want to make my cut, because if you are trying to make a really precise cut, and if you cut on the wrong side of the line, then you're going to be an eighth of an inch too short, because the saw blade will eat that wood that it hits. So make sure that you cut on the proper side of the line to get an exact cut. All right, so here's the very basics of making a cut. So you've got your measuring tape. This little guard thing will lock it on the end of your wood right here. And then you pull it out, keep it as straight as you can get it. Find the line on the measuring tape and make a mark. So there's my mark. Okay, so there's the mark I made. I want to line this up with my saw. So I'm just a little shy, so I need to shift my wood barely over. I need to make sure that it's up tight against the fence on both sides. And right there, you see that? That is going to cut on actually, you know what? I'm cutting on the wrong side of the line. I need to cut on this side of the line, so I need to shift it over because this is my 22 inches. That's gonna make it exactly where I want it. And then hold this in place. Make sure your fingers are well away from the blade. Make your cut. All right, so the next saw that I owned and that I got and used was a circular saw. This is pretty simple to use. There's a bevel here or a lever here that you can flip to determine how deep your saw blade is going to cut. This is a fence that will protect your blade from going through. This is your trigger to start it up. You can lock it with this. Pretty simple. These little notches right here will make sure that if you make a line on your wood, then you can follow these little notches to make sure that your saw blade is making a straight cut. Okay, so I didn't show you guys the table saw. A table saw is not absolutely necessary. You can make most cuts that you can make with a table saw. You can also make with a circular saw, but it does make making cuts like I just did a lot easier. So you don't have to have a table saw, but it does come in handy. This is just the power switch. You turn it on, you turn this around to raise and lower your saw blade, and you can also flip this lever to change the bevel if you want to make like a 45-degree angle. This right here, you can see it's got measuring stuff. And then you just pull this lever up and move the fence for however wide you want your cuts to be.